There are moments in life when silence is no longer golden, when silence becomes complicity and speaking becomes a responsibility. This is one of those moments. Today, I am not here to deliver a lecture on geopolitics. I am here to offer a mirror to the world we live in and the world we pretend to live in. There is a difference, and that difference has been ignored for far too long. We have been told that the global order is built on fairness, equality, and cooperation. But let us pause and ask ourselves, whose fairness, whose equality, and cooperation for whom? The truth is uncomfortable, and the powerful, oh, how they hate discomfort. You see, there is a game being played. A game dressed in the robes of diplomacy, masked by the language of peace, and hidden behind treaties and resolutions. But when the dust settles, it is a game of dominance, a game of narratives, a game where some voices echo like thunder, while others are silenced before they even begin to speak. This is not a cry of the victim, this is the voice of awakening. We are not here to beg for a seat at the table, we are here to redefine the table. We are not asking for permission to rise, we are reminding the world that we have already risen. Because when we speak truth, it rattles the ones who live in comfort built on the backs of others. When we expose double standards, it unsettles those who wear them like second skin. And when we no longer whisper but speak with clarity, the global game begins to crack. What is power if it is built on fear? What is influence if it demands silence in return? And what is unity if it only comes after obedience? The world needs more than polished speeches and picture-perfect summits. It needs honesty, it needs courage, it needs a new language, one that is not written in the capitals of a few, but in the hearts of many. Let us not confuse humility with submission. Let us not accept hypocrisy as diplomacy. Let us not pretend that global leadership is the birthright of a few. We come from civilizations older than their maps. We carry wisdom deeper than their strategies, and our silence was never weakness, it was patience. But that patience is wearing thin. I do not speak to divide, I speak to awaken, because only when we see the game clearly can we choose not to play by its rules. Only when we recognize the illusion can we reclaim the truth. So here we stand, not with clenched fists, but with open eyes, not with vengeance, but with vision, and with the quiet strength of those who have been tested but never broken. The game has been exposed. Now it is time to write new rules, rules of respect, rules of equality, rules not dictated by power but inspired by principle. We are not asking for permission to rise, we are reminding the world that we have already risen. This is not a declaration of defiance, it is a reaffirmation of dignity. For far too long, the narrative of global power has revolved around who gives permission and who seeks it, but the tides have turned. We have risen not because someone allowed us to, but because resilience is embedded in our roots, because our spirit has refused to be subdued, and because we no longer see ourselves through the lens of dependency. To rise is not merely to gain power. It is to reclaim identity, to assert self, worth, and to walk tall despite the weight of centuries of marginalization. Our rise is not loud. It does not need applause or headlines. It is quiet, steady, and undeniable, etched into the way we speak, lead, build, and stand. It is in the way we refuse to be defined by the past, yet refuse to forget it. Our history is not a shadow, it is a backbone. Those who still speak to us in the language of approval have failed to notice that the world has changed. Their scripts are outdated, their hierarchies are fragile. Permission implies inferiority, and we have outgrown that mindset. We are not emerging, we have emerged. We are not trying, we have already arrived, and we do not need validation to know our value. This rise was not granted, it was earned. Earned through the wisdom of generations who endured silence so their children could speak. Earned through the hands that built despite being denied tools. Earned through the minds that innovated even when the doors to opportunity were closed. Every step forward has been taken with intention, with sacrifice, with the clarity that progress must come from within. When we speak today, we do so not to impress, but to express, not to fit in, but to reshape the space itself. The world may have overlooked us in the past, but it can no longer afford to. The foundations we've built in education, in diplomacy, in technology, in human dignity, speak louder than any endorsement ever could. We are not rising on borrowed strength. We are rising on the strength that was always within us. What's changed is not our capability, but our clarity, clarity that we do not owe explanations for our success, clarity that our journey is not a favor from the powerful, but the fruit of our own perseverance. Clarity that we belong, not as guests in global conversations, but as equal architects of its future. There is something deeply powerful in choosing to stand without waiting for applause. There is something unshakable in knowing you have arrived because you were never truly absent. Let us not confuse humility with submission, nor accept hypocrisy as diplomacy. There is a quiet strength in humility. It is the grace to know your worth without shouting it, the courage to lead without dominating, and the wisdom to listen without losing your voice. Humility does not mean weakness. It does not mean we bow our heads in the face of injustice or soften our truth to protect the comfort of others. Humility is power under control. It is confidence without arrogance, and it should never be mistaken as consent to be silenced. Yet, in the theater of global politics, humility is often exploited. When we choose respect, they interpret it as obedience. When we act with restraint, they see hesitation. When we speak with civility, they take it as an opportunity to talk over us. This is where the line between humility and submission becomes dangerously thin. We must guard that line fiercely, because once we begin to shrink ourselves to fit someone else's definition of diplomacy, we do not become diplomatic, we become invisible. Submission is not a virtue. It is not noble to accept injustice for the sake of false peace. It is not wise to allow louder voices to narrate our story just because they have occupied more space historically. We are not here to blend in. We are here to stand firm in who we are, what we believe, and what we deserve. The world may expect us to wait our turn, to soften our tone, to earn the right to speak. But that expectation is built on the foundation of imbalance, and we were not born to uphold imbalance. Diplomacy has become a polished mask. Behind handshakes and smiling photographs lies a system where double standards are dressed up as strategy, where rules shift depending on who is breaking them, where values are weaponized selectively, used as tools of pressure for some and quietly ignored for others. This is not diplomacy. This is hypocrisy with a press release. True diplomacy is built on mutual respect, not manipulation. On consistency, not convenience. It cannot ask us to be silent about what matters most in the name of protocol. It cannot demand we play along while others bend the rules without consequence. If justice is only expected from the weak and never from the strong, then the conversation was never diplomatic. It was dictated. Our voices must not be molded to fit a script written elsewhere. We must speak in our own rhythm with our own truth. We are not here to disrupt peace, but to reveal that peace without justice is a beautifully staged lie. The time has come to separate sincerity from performance, to recognize that not every polished voice is genuine and not every quiet one is naive. The game has been exposed. Now it is time to write new rules, not dictated by power, but inspired by principle. For too long, the world has operated under rules crafted in closed rooms, drawn not from shared humanity but from self-interest. These rules were not designed to include all, they were designed to protect the few. They wear the cloak of international cooperation, but beneath the surface, they are strategies of control, filters of legitimacy, and tools of selective justice. The powerful have written these rules like authors who never intended the rest of us to read the book, let alone revise it. But the pages have started to tear, the ink has begun to fade, and the game they thought would last forever is unraveling. The exposure of the game is not a moment of chaos, it is a moment of clarity. It is the moment we stop pretending that the system is broken and start acknowledging that, for many of us, it was never built to serve. When the same actions receive applause in one corner of the world and condemnation in another, we know the system does not reflect principle, it reflects privilege. When rules are rigid for the weak and flexible for the strong, we are not witnessing order. We are witnessing performance. The time has come to reclaim the meaning of fairness, to redefine what it means to lead. Leadership must no longer be measured by dominance, but by integrity. It must not be based on who can speak the loudest, but on who is willing to speak the truth, especially when the truth is inconvenient. We need new rules that are not etched in fear, but rooted in dignity. Rules that see nations not as pawns on a board, but as equal voices in a collective future. These new rules will not come from think tanks alone. They must rise from lived realities, from the voices of those who have been kept on the margins of influence. They must reflect not just ambition, but accountability. They must honor the idea that strength lies not in exclusion, but in empathy, not in silence, but in shared dialogue. It is no longer acceptable for a handful to write scripts that billions are expected to follow. The world deserves a system where justice is not a matter of geography, and freedom is not a reward handed down from the powerful. Where progress is not measured by imitation of the dominant, but by the elevation of the authentic. Where every nation, every people, and every culture is seen not as a follower, but as a co-author of the global story. This is not a call for rebellion, it is a call for recalibration, a shift from power games to principles that last beyond headlines, a shift from the illusion of order to the substance of fairness. The rules we need now must be drawn not in the language of force, but in the spirit of shared purpose, not to control outcomes, but to create space for genuine inclusion.